Today on the Inquiry Zone, what is wait time and how do we use it in our classrooms? Hello, everybody. This is John Taylor from the ETHOS Innovation Center, Director of the STEM Education. Special guest with me today.
Good morning. Welcome. This is John Moran, the facilitator for the Science to Go bus, interacting with John Taylor this morning.
Well, good to have you here, John. So I think you have a question for us today.
Yeah, so when you're interacting with students, what is wait time?
So what is wait time? Was that long enough?
That was a good wait.
It's funny.
Was it long enough?
What was that, like 2 seconds, and it felt like an eternity? Yeah, it does. That's kind of the thing about wait time is when you have to do this, when you exercise this with students, it's a very uncomfortable time. And I'm guessing on the school bus, you interact with students and you interact with teachers also. What do you think about wait time? What's your take, John?
And so, the management part of it, you ask a student a question, you're waiting for their response. In the meantime, the other kids may or may not be listening to that student. And the longer the wait time is, the more likely is the other students are going to quit waiting. So I try to, give them an appropriate time to gather their thoughts. And a lot of times you can see, by their body language, whether or not, they have that thought going and the wheels are turning and they're attempting to put their thoughts together. Other times you can tell that they have that blank stare, and that's when maybe you need to throw another interaction with them, a prodding question or something to help get them to give a response.
There's a lot in what you just said there contained in there. Like I was thinking right off, you ever have that where you ask a question of a kid and you're waiting on them to answer and some other kid answers? And, and as a teacher, it's really natural. Okay, I can check off the box. I got my answer. I can move on. But as teachers, that's not what we want to have happen, because if that kid you ask a question to, another kid answers for him, then that kid has just learned something we don't want them to learn, right? They're learning that, hey, if I wait long enough, I don't have to say anything. Now, what's funny is your name is John. My name is John. Now, when you're in school, were there very many other Johns in your class?
Yeah, we had 3 Johns at one time.
Yeah, I did too. So I don't know. I kind of learned that if the teacher asked a question, hey, John, what do you think? I could play dumb. And one of the other Johns would usually speak up for me, and I was off the hook.
Yeah. And kids do learn those ways to avoid maybe it's embarrassment, because it takes a lot to stick your neck out and give an answer with the chance that it is not right.
Right.
And other students may not react appropriately if they give an answer that is way off base.
Right. But is that thing where, as a class, as teachers, we've really got to think what our goal is. Is our goal to get to the answers, or we got to think about that environment, I think, also, because you are right. We definitely don't want to embarrass kids. But this, you want to make sure that they have a voice, that they can say something. And, I guess you have some ground rules. Like if I were to hear another kid make fun of what a kid responded, that kid would be my target real quick, because I'd have the next 5, 6 questions. I keep nailing to, it's a thing where we've got to be respectful. Actually, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to nail him. I would say, hey, he's got it. She can do it. They got it. Right. And then it's that encouragement after the response. And even if they're off target, it's saying, well, you can talk through it. But it is about setting that stage, I think, in the classroom or with your kids, where your expectations are, when I ask a question to a student, I will, get a response from that student. Now, there are some times, like you're saying, what if the kid really doesn't know the answer? We're asking a question that they don't know. So are they off the hook, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, and so a lot of times I ask for volunteers, so I don't, because my dialogue time on the bus is short compared to the whole class. Most of the time I want students involved in doing things. So my question answers are usually short. So I ask for volunteers. That way, they're volunteering, they put their hand up so we know that they're comfortable in sharing it.
Sure.
But after a couple rounds, I'll ask, hey, is there somebody I have not heard from today? And that way, it's like, okay, that student who always wants to answer, you got your one time and now we're going to share. So yeah, you do have to develop that culture, classroom
Sure.
culture where it's acceptable for them to, speak up without, anybody laughing or anything if their answer is way off base.
Well,
But the other thing I do as a teacher is if the answer is not directly what I was thinking, I try to connect their thought to the subject matter. So it's still a positive reaction. They still had something that they shared with the class that ties in, and I'll try to make that connection with what I say next. And they acknowledge it as, yeah, that is correct, and but we're looking for a little bit more, and give a little another prod to point them in the direction that I was aiming for.
No, that's a good point, because as a teacher, when a kid gives a response that isn't where we were heading, we've got to really, it's a self-check, because we could say, well, it's on the kids. They need to know this, but it might be, hey, wait a minute. I'm presenting this, or I'm guiding the students through this lesson, and they're not getting it. And that is that thing. Another thought I had too is, when you do have those kids, like you're talking about, you've heard of these kids quite a few times. Hey, I've heard it 3 times. I'll move on to somebody else. It's all right. I think it's good to set the stage, because I was one of those kids who would be very intimidated that I'd be scared to death the teacher was going to call on me cold, and I would just, even I knew the answer, I couldn't say it out unless maybe say, hey, you 4, I haven't called on you yet. So just be ready, because I'm going to call on you, because that really does change the mode. And I do know some of the other kids might disengage because, like, oh, I'm not going to be called on now. And they should learn that, well, that's not necessarily true also. And that's something from a culture within your classroom. But, giving the kids a forewarning that, hey, I'm going to call on you here soon. So I want to hear your thoughts, hear what you're thinking as we're going through this. As a teacher, that's creating that safe environment, and allows us to interact with the kids in a healthy way. Yeah.
And the other reason I ask questions is to kind of assess where the class is, because it's not my normal class.
Yes.
So I don't know their knowledge, where they're at. Did they just study this already and we can move on to the next level? Or and what I'm doing is an introduction, and they've not even thought about what we're talking about today. And so when I ask the questions, I'm trying to assess real quickly where they're at with their knowledge base.
Right.
And so depending on the grade level, it all ties in too.
Sure. And that's what that wait time really is important. For new teachers, I think it'd be very, very difficult, but I've seen this difficult with older teachers too. In that I always say to if you're a new teacher, go watch Steve on Blue's Clues, because Steve is the master of wait time. And it almost is, if you have to. I remember having a student teacher, I said, count to 3. And I said, let's practice before you were with the students, because when you're with the students, be 1, 2, 3. But it's
right.
1001, 1002, 1003. And that is an awkward silence time that is needed, because kids, there are some kids that, and I'll say this, one of my siblings was a lot like this, actually, that when you would say something, you got a response right away. And I know as a kid, I was like that too. I would say something before thinking. And it's a skill to learn to use your 2 ears and only 1 mouth to listen and process what somebody says. All right. And then respond. Because as a teacher, what do we want? Do we want those kids who can rattle back our response, or do we want thoughtful kids? And if we do want thoughtful kids, we think they need time. The quiet kids are thinking usually a lot. We kind of know that in our classroom. And they need some time to formulate an answer. And if we're rushing them, I always hate it, because you get in kids, if you could tell they've been rushed because they start to stammer, or they'd have stuttering, or things like, or they'd say random things because they knew it was not a comfortable thing to take some time to think before you responded. And as a teacher, that's a check on us, is that we've got to make sure that it's okay that, our class time, we take a little more time for wait so that kids can formulate a good answer, and that's okay. I think it
Yeah.
comes down, like you're saying before, classroom expectations are a big deal as you go through this.
Yeah,
for
and it takes a while. You're not going to develop it in the first week. It's going to
No.
be an ongoing part of the goal for your what is the culture of that class.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was asking the questions. You're not just looking for the answer, but you're also perhaps teaching them how to think. You're
Yes.
teaching them how to process the information. And if they have a question, maybe it's slightly off, but when they ask that question, you're getting into what their brain is thinking about. And that's
Right.
most important too, is that, every student's a little bit different on how they're connecting the dots. And so, the way they answer can be an insight into that thought process they're having.
And I've liked the way that, and I've seen you engage and this is another thing we'll have to talk about in a later episode, this idea that when kids ask a question, how not to be the bearer of all knowledge, instead turning that question back into a question back to the kids. But we could talk about that at another time. But anyways, wait time, very, very important thing. Like I said, it's good to watch some master teachers, those who have experience with wait time. Watch them, do a count when they ask a question, see how many seconds pass before an answer, watch how they move on, then move back to students. Okay, you did, all right, I didn't get that response this time. Hey, that's okay, but I'm gonna come back to you so you can contribute also, and you go on to somebody else, and then you do come back. And it's good to have that. I remember I used to have a seating chart, and I always seating charts, but I'd have a seating chart that I use that I was checking off. And as for me, I would go through a day and check off the kids who I had called on, and you'll notice a pattern if you do this. Like, wow, I called on 5 out of 25 kids today. And these kids I need to call on the next time, which means I'm going to have to exercise wait time to get those other kids to respond. All right, good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's more we can say, but that was a pretty good discussion. I will say, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you look at the bottom, there's a link, because keep throwing in your questions. We love to talk about them. Thank you very much to our special guest, John Moran from the Science to Go bus. If you have not seen that, that is an amazing thing, a lab on wheels. And what you do with kids is just amazing. So glad to have you with us today, John.
I appreciate being invited. Glad to be here.